What's going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon. It is the Earthmaster back here on this beautiful weekend, Saturday, October 7th, 2023, about 10:30 a.m. California time. Latest activities shows a 3.1 over here in Turkey. Goodness, this is the last 24 hours of earthquake activity around the globe. That is quite active. We did see some large-scale movement kicking up overnight, including quite a few sixes, almost a 7-pointer. Originally, these came in around Papua New Guinea as 7-pointers. Now, these are not duplicate earthquakes, but these are independent earthquakes here around Papua New Guinea, kicking off in this area. Largest so far in this sequence of earthquake activity is 6.9. Prior to that 6.9, we had a 6.7 just a few minutes prior. So we got some incredible strain building out here. This is just shy of that area where I said to watch last night, because this is pretty quiet, right? This has been generally quiet. In fact, this area back around Fiji and Tonga has not filled in. A little odd. But goodness, that is quite the earthquake activity. Here in the last couple hours or so, we've seen aftershock activity calm down, but it all started off with a 6.7 and then just got a little bit larger a few minutes later. Quite a few 5s in the aftershock area. For aftershocks in that area as well, the other upticked area in terms of larger scale movement has been out here in western Afghanistan. Now, this is kind of odd because most of our movement, well, there's many different subduction zones around here across the Himalayas and into eastern Afghanistan. Normally, we see earthquake activity triggered out over here beneath these mountain ranges here. Very deep movement over the past. We'd have to go back the past 30 days or so to see all this activity. But this is interesting because we haven't really seen any movement out here in western Afghanistan in quite some time. But that changed last night with it started off with a 6.3 late last night after I went to bed. Think that'd be the main quake, right? Well, somewhat of a main quake. We've seen a similar magnitude, another 6.3, just about 45 minutes or so later, another 6.3. But goodness, 5.9 a few minutes after that. Definitely seen some elevated movement there in a short period of time around the globe. A lot going on out here in the world of plate tectonics, and just a very active time, I think. Quite a bit of strain up here across the EQ Trench here recently in the Kuril-Kamchatka. Overnight, these regions here looks as though they have calmed down for now. Doesn't mean that they're done with the activity. The last one was a 5.0 into the EQ Trench away from the swarming area. Of course, the swarming area consists of about 78 earthquakes of moderate to large magnitudes, including a couple 6s. We did see some 6-pointers in there as well. In a little swarm I shouldn't say little anymore, in a large swarm fashion. In 2 separate little migration areas, a little swarm up here, and then we started yesterday noticing a little swarm up here around the Kuril-Kamchatka. That's indicating some big time movement out here across the plate boundaries. But overnight, it looks like that is on a large scale coverage as far as that movement goes and that pressure building up out here in the region. It's been a long time since I've seen this many 6s in a short amount of time in different areas. Goodness. All right, so let's see what we got here. The latest one, as of right now, shows a 4.3, still aftershock activity there in eastern Afghanistan. And by the way, let's see what we got, or western Afghanistan, excuse me. Western Afghanistan. Historical data out here, well, it struck in an area that has only seen limited, very small earthquake activity. These are probably 4.5. It shows 4.5 to 5.0. So specifically in this area, we really haven't seen anything above that magnitude. So that's why I'm saying it's rather rare to see earthquake activity in western Afghanistan. Historically, it's all out here underneath the mountain range up against the subduction zones here. You can see it warping out here in the topography of the map. You can see those the plate dynamics at work there. So a little odd to see some earthquake activity specifically out here in western Afghanistan. Something is big time brewing out here between the swarming out here across the Izu Trench, Kuril Kamchatka. This area, goodness, looks like it's, I don't know, could experience a mega quake out here soon. If I had to guess, I still think it could be, with all this pressure building up against now the western areas of the Philippine plate. It could be anywhere along here. Mariana Trench has been awfully quiet too over the last 30 days. Some movement. This is way back in September, so technically this area hasn't seen any movement since the 26th of September, and today's the 7th of October. That's rather rare to not see any movement over there. Two distinct quiet zones of Mariana Trench up here off the coast of Sumatra northward. Although this area has seen some movement in the past couple months. Just looking at the weekly model here, though. Either way, that's a lot of uptick here, folks. So what do we have again? We had largest magnitudes. We had, technically, if you want to count that 5.9, we've had 5 large earthquakes here, and the largest is 6.9. And these are in various areas. Western Afghanistan and Papua New Guinea region. And technically, over the last 7 days, we've seen, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 6-pointers in the last week. Some of those up here in the Izu Trench as well. So regions are getting heightened out here in terms of the plate stress amongst the general area. Yesterday we seen that 5.9 in Mexico late last night. So things kicking up. Many different areas over here showing some large-scale movement. Not just in one specific area. It's all over the place. So something brewing. Big time. All right, let's see what we got here for the... this is an older quake, I believe. No, 10.7. That was from earlier this morning. Let's go back here. Newest magnitudes. Early this morning, 5.1, 53 kilometers deep. A little bit further up along the Japan Trench here. All right, well, keep an eye on things out here. Big time stuff brewing. Nepal did see a little activity as well. Late last night, 5.0. Kind of have to look at regions that have not seen any large-scale movement here. Let's go ahead and check this out real quick while I got a minute. Custom, we're going to go in large scale. We're not talking about 5.0s or so. We're talking about 7.0 and above for areas that are capable of doing that, or capable of exceeding that magnitude. In the last, I don't know, let's go 2000, year 2000. Just want to see here. There's going to be a lot of quakes, but that's why I put it at a 7.0 for the area. We're going to look at right around the Afghanistan area. Let's see where we're at. I'd really like to cover this area around the Kuril Kamchatka because I know that that area is definitely primed for some larger scale movement. I think that should work, right? That's going to cover a lot of area. There we go. And see what we have historically out here for 7-pointers. Got 78 of them. That's funny. Same number that is around the Izu Trench for a total tally. Goodness. Numbers, synchronicity. Might have to play the lottery today. All right, so Western Afghanistan, if you notice, really nothing over 7.0. The 6-pointer struck out there. 6-point, let's bring back up the most recent map here. 6.9, right? Or 6.3. 6.3 is the largest to strike that area in quite some time. We have seen some movement in Pakistan. I'm thinking, let's see, we did see some movement up here in the down here in the Andaman Sea area back in 2004, 2010. But the recent activity here, looking out on our newer map, shows that this area is a quiet zone, seismic gap. Another area that I think everyone's heard is up around Nepal, around the Himalayas. Now, they get some big-time earthquakes up here. The last large magnitude was back in 2015. But there's segments out here of this subduction zone that have not seen any movement in a very long time. That would put this area in some prime region for some larger scale activity as well. Myanmar area, they get some large quakes, but not these mega quakes across the subduction zone down here, across that plate boundary. The main regions I'm concerned right now are these subduction areas. So potentially Nepal area could be in that prime zone for some larger mega movement. It does sit within the area of interest. They've seen a little bit of activity here since, has it been over a week now? Maybe 30 days. Just specifically in this area where they've seen a little bit of swarming. 5.7 and some other 4s and 5s in there. And that sits, that sits over here a little bit, back here in this quiet zone. And this area is very capable of producing much larger magnitudes. I'll go back here and check out the Izu Trench area. Let's see, back in 2015, they had a 7.8 in that region, roughly right around where that swarming area is occurring. But that one, look how deep that one is, 664 kilometers deep. That's what I'm saying. It's odd to see this much activity and this much activity over here. Let me show you guys the recent activity. Same region, roughly around the Izu Trench, but shallow. All these earthquakes are around 10 kilometers deep. So that, like I keep saying, that leads me to believe that there's some larger scale pressure building up here against this segment of the plate. But back in this 2010, we had a 7.4 off, well away from this area. Of course, Japan, I think, I don't know. I don't think we're overdue for that one. They had that 9.1 back in 2011. But doesn't mean we won't see any further earthquakes. As far as large ones go, not a 9.0, mega quakes up there. But specifically, if you think about it, this area is in a seismic gap zone, meaning lack of large-scale movement. At least here in the last 23 years, I haven't really seen any major movement. A little bit down here. There's this one, but maybe this could have been. This looks like it's off of the plate boundary a little bit, shallow. But this could be another segment that could be primed for some larger scale activity. So we'll just have to watch this, folks. Either way, I think it's a very interesting few days that we've seen here, all leading up potentially to something bigger. Just too much noticeable activity out here in this region. We'll watch it. I got to keep moving here with this update. Hawaii, one earthquake up around Mauna Loa at 2.0. Couple of them, it looks like. As far as activity at the Kilauea volcano goes, well, the last one was about 8:30 this morning, according to the USGS. But I want to double check that and make sure. Let me check out their notification here first and see what's going on. Kilauea daily update, that was from yesterday. They haven't put one out yet. We're going to go check out the seismograph stations ourselves, see what's going on with the tilt here across the Kilauea volcano. Again, all this information is from the USGS, and it is all publicly accessible on their public domain website, usgs.gov. Seismograph stations here past 24 hours, definitely a noticeable drop off in earthquake activity. See this? They said the last one was around 8 o'clock this morning or so, which is probably this one. But it looks like we've seen a couple This is local time, Hawaii time. But it looks like we've seen a couple since then. But definitely compared to yesterday, a noticeable drop in earthquake activity. Surprisingly, along with the activity over here in Japan, or Izu Trench. This dropped off. Hawaii dropped off today. Roughly about the same time, probably. Now, since this earthquake swarm has kicked up over here, Hawaii's kicked up. A lot brewing up, a lot of tilt rising, inflation of that area. So definitely something I think has to do with the amount of volume below the oceanic crust out there in terms of what's going on in the deeper regions of the planet. Let me go back to Hawaii here real quick. See the tilt meter here today. Here's the last 2 days. Yesterday we seen this little odd drop, up, drop, and then remaining elevated here. And according to the USGS, the tilt meter inflation data is the highest it's been in 5 years, and that's following all these eruptions that we've seen there at Kilauea Volcano in the past year or so, couple years. So what's going on? Something bigger bubbling up from the heated areas below could be fueling this inflation. Well, it's obviously got to be fueling it. Here's the this is almost a month, 30-day period. Here was our eruption back in early September. Only lasted a couple days. It depleted what was at the surface areas, and then it's starting to rise back up. Let me show you guys their wording over here. Go back to the USGS, HVO, Kilauea Daily Update. This was from yesterday. Now, let's see if we can find that. Here we go. Inflation at the summit of Kilauea remains close to its highest level in over 5 years and has nearly returned to the level seen just before the last eruption on September 10th. But a lot of this activity is occurring around the December 1974 eruption event, so it's possible we could see these kicking up, or at least within the vicinity. Most of our recent eruptions have been confined to fissures in the Kilauea. Let's check that out real quick. In the Kilauea lava lake area that's been filling up, on these long-term eruptions. But once that's full, maybe the plumbing system below gets blocked, then other areas around the Kilauea volcano will start showing potentially new fissures or old fissures being activated. Let's check out the size or the cameras out here today, see what we have. Couldn't last night because it was obviously dark. Here's a morning view of it. Still seeing some smoke out here from the volcanic gases. I guess the thing to watch out for is maybe new areas, outside of the there's Mauna Loa's northeast rift zone. These rift zones you do got to watch. Here's the crater lava lake area. A little bit, right? There's still heated surfaces. There's still volcanic gases finding their way up through areas where they will. But the areas I think to watch here, maybe with around, are going to be in that 1974 area. I think it's just south of, as I mentioned, just south of the Kilauea volcano area where this earthquake activity is occurring. Right now, these are fairly, they're getting a little bit shallower. The last one looks like it was a 1.7 magnitude. A little bit shallower here south of the crater lava lake area. So it's possible we could see things charged up, fueled up, maybe activated out here as far as the next eruption goes. But for now, it's come to a halt as far as the earthquake activity goes, along with the EQ Trench. And most of the halting here has come to a result of Afghanistan activity, movement down here in Papua New Guinea, potentially a little bit of relief for what's going on up here north and also in the Hawaii area. Hawaii tends to get squeezed out there, right? The Pacific Plate, you got to understand the dynamics of the movement, what's going on underneath the oceanic crust. It gets squeezed a lot out there on that hot spot. We really haven't seen any movement out here across the eastern Pacific, which is not surprising, because a lot of times we get that teeter-totter effect, right? We get that western movement taking place, and things just kind of go with the flow over here. But we'll continue to watch that for the next few hours and day or so, if this kicks back up or not. And of course, back here, Tonga area, Samoa, we did see one earthquake, it looks like, late last night, 4.6 Solomon Islands. But this area has been quiet for about 4 days now, with a lot of advancement in the momentum out here. But well, you know, there's so much to watch right now in terms of what can happen, what should catch up, what's seen too much activity. It's just crazy right now. It's been the last few days have been pretty crazy, watching all this activity stir up out here and what it's leading to, or what it potentially is leading to. All right, let's move on past that. Let's go ahead and look at California real quick. Not really seeing anything major going on. A little bit of movement across the Long Valley supervolcano just outside this caldera, which sits up here. You can kind of see the outline of it. 1.7, 10 kilometers deep. No major swarm kicking up. Just some small microquake activity, which is common in that area. Southern California, San Jacinto fault zone showing some activity, but this is, again, a major plate or just off the major plate boundary, which is the San Andreas Fault. Very typical to see microquake movement. Los Angeles area, a couple small microquakes. But generally speaking, the West Coast and the states in general have been relatively quiet ever since this activity kicked up over here across the western Pacific. Alaska, a little bit quieter here today as well. Yesterday we did see some movement in the morning all across the Aleutian Trench, but just generally a microquake out here. Microquake activity today, it looks like. No further movement here in Mexico. That's somewhat of a deeper quake yesterday into the Middle America Trench at 5.9. Puerto Rico Trench, not seeing too much activity, just a handful of earthquakes today, nothing big. South America region, one earthquake from yesterday, 4.6. Very shallow, and just prior to the plate boundary here of the Peru-Chile Trench. Space weather activity, that's another story, pretty quiet. Here's a look at the magnetogram of the sunspots and their direct magnetic cores, which are, oh man, not even worth chatting about. This area is just continuing to separate and not show any strength, and all these other regions here are just doing the same thing, playing follow the leader. And this is somewhat the leader right here, heading off to the western limb while everything behind it fades away. Right now, minimal chance of 90% chance for C flare. M flare, 30% chance. Not for sure I agree with that, but that's what it shows here. X flare remains lowered at 1% chance. There are no expected aurora events out here as far as the solar storms go. In fact, things right now are steady as she goes. Pretty quiet up there across the polar regions of the north and down south. Pretty quiet. Severe weather outlook today, quiet. Look at that. Only a chance of thunderstorms out there. That's it. Not even a marginal risk of severe weather. That is very quiet, and that looks like that's going to be the pattern here over the next couple days. Goodness. All right, so let's see here. Seismograph stations are looking pretty quiet. There's not a whole lot going on for now. This may only be a little temporary relief across the EQ Trench for now. We'll have to keep an eye on that. I mean, that swarming was obviously a sign of, quite a bit of pressure out here. Got some big-time movement that's taking place out here across the EQ Trench, and the Kuril Kamchatka getting in on it as well. We'll just watch these zones here that are potentially overdue for some large quake activity. This was a little surprise out here. But as you can see, there's obviously fault systems that run through this area. Some maybe that haven't seen any larger scale activity in quite some time. Let's see if there's any. Here's a little information tectonic summary. The 6.3 occurred as a result of thrust faulting at shallow depths near the far western terminus of the Hindu Kush area mountain range. This earthquake was followed by a second 6.3 that occurred approximately 30 minutes later. Both earthquakes occurred on the east-west striking fault plains that dip to either the north or south. The earthquakes occurred in the Eurasia Plate in the intercontinental mountain belt. Earthquakes in Afghanistan and its surrounding regions are common, but not specifically in western Afghanistan. Since 1927, other earthquakes of magnitude 6 or larger have occurred within 250 kilometers. That's a little distance, though, right? 250 kilometers? Put miles in there, and it sounds a lot further. That's like saying, I don't want to get into that. But, yeah, it's over in Iran. These previous earthquakes included a magnitude 7.3 back in 1997. A couple other earthquakes as well, historically. But specifically for this area, history tells us that it's not common out here. So a little bit of a surprise for the western Afghanistan area. All right, folks, I'm going to jump off here. I got a few things I got to do today, a couple of things for the channel. And we will catch you guys out here a little bit later on tonight. Just stay safe and enjoy your Saturday. Have a good one. It's supposed to be about 96 degrees out here where I live. Hopefully this is the last day of summer. I'm done with it. Take care. We'll catch you guys back here tonight. Have a good one.